Okay. All right. Well, look, because we've only got 25 minutes today, I don't think we're going to wait much longer. I think what we want to do is just sort of get right into it. So welcome everybody, and been wanting to say this for ages, but happy SD-WANsday. So these episodes have been designed really just to be short and sweet. We really wanted to bring you a platform where we can listen to your challenges, understand, where you're at, and provide some expertise and some insights from our fantastic team, who you'll hear from shortly. As I said, we did ask, we will keep it short and sweet. We did ask all of you to submit those challenges. We've been quite overwhelmed. We've received around 30 plus challenges, which has been really interesting. We've had a chance to look at them, and there has been some common themes. So that's kind of how we've structured today's episode. So please, I'm not going to say anything else. I'm going to hand over to Chris Eaton, and he can introduce himself and his team. And I'll see you at the end of the 25 minutes. Good luck, Chris, keeping this to 25 minutes, but that's our goal. Awesome. Thank you.
Thanks everyone for joining. So my role here is at Logicalis as the National Practice Manager for Network and Security. We look after all things network and security, right through from traditional WAN and switching through to SD-WAN, SASE. I am very fortunate enough to have a sensational team with me, and two of the gentlemen I've got on the call, Shoaib and Gihan, are two of our solutions architects, both based in New South Wales. So they're very wet at the moment, and I'm very cold. So we've got a great combination between the three of us. As Holly mentioned, it's 25 minutes, so we are going to be brief and try and get to the point. Around 30 questions. We've tried to categorize them into three different topics. We'll get to that in a moment. But I guess first of all, what is SD-WAN and how do Logicalis define SD-WAN? So from our perspective, at a real basic level, SD-WAN is an intelligent networking overlay. It simplifies the configuration of complex underlay networking protocols. And SD-WAN provides application-level visibility into these underlays, presenting end users with real-time data that is typically not available with traditional WAN deployments. Now, that's a definition that the three of us came up with. That changes fairly regularly, and I think everybody you speak to has a slightly different definition of SD-WAN, depending on what they're using it for and depending on the application. What is absolutely clear to us at the moment is the SD-WAN market is growing hugely. The market is expected to be around $8.5 billion US by 2025. It's currently around $2.5 billion US. So there's some significant growth over the next few years, around 34% year on year. And basically the driver is people want to simplify the management of complex networking with a lower cost. Now we'll go into why you can and why you can't do that, and different variations of that over the next few slides. But as I said, we'll not go into too much of the complex data because we don't have a whole lot of time. But the way we've kind of categorized the presentation moving forward, and we categorized the questions, is we've split them into experience, connectivity, and security. The questions that came in, as Holly said, they're quite overwhelming, the amount we got. They weren't all relevant to necessarily to SD-WAN, but they all had a tie-in somehow, whether it was SASE, whether it was SD branch. They all kind of related to each other somehow. So we've picked those three categories. I'll briefly talk to the user experience, which is kind of the less technical side and focuses on things like visibility and monitoring. Shoaib will chat to you about connectivity and kind of the routing side of things. And Gihan will talk to you at the end about security and how that all ties in. So from an experience perspective, I guess we'll talk about some of the misconceptions and some of the things that people think SD-WAN can and can't do. A lot of people think I'm going to put SD-WAN in because I want a more stable, more reliable solution. SD-WAN, quite simply put, is an overlay. SD-WAN is not a technology that can change the property of a WAN link. So if you've got a WAN link that's not very stable, and you put that next to another WAN link that's not very stable, next to another WAN link that's not very stable, and put an SD-WAN overlay on it, that doesn't make it more stable. What it does do is it provides you a little bit more resiliency, because the likelihood of you having all three links unstable at the same time is minimal. So the more links you bolt on together, the less likely you have dropouts, but you could still get the performance issues if they're all poor quality links. So it does provide ability for active rather than active standby, which is traditionally what MPLS solutions offer. Another one is SD-WAN is a direct replacement for MPLS. This is quite simply incorrect. So a lot of people are starting to replace MPLS with internet links by using SD-WAN as an overlay, but you cannot simply replace MPLS with SD-WAN because SD-WAN is an overlay, MPLS is an underlay. If we want to talk about a little bit more of that outside of this call, we can. As I said, we can't get into too much detail now, but MPLS actually becomes part of the SD-WAN fabric or is removed from the SD-WAN fabric as opposed to being replaced by SD-WAN. Another big one, SD-WAN will save money and is easy to deploy. Now, 99% of the time we deploy SD-WAN solutions for clients, yes, we can save them money, but rolling out SD-WAN by itself should not be used as a key driver, as in cost saving shouldn't be used as a key driver. Visibility, reporting, agility, speed to action, absolutely, they're great key drivers. Spinning up new sites promptly, but at the end of the day, there's still a cost to deploy and a cost to procure hardware, so it shouldn't be used solely as a cost-saving exercise. And managing SD-WAN by myself is easy because it's GUI-driven. We're starting to see a little bit of this in Australia, but it's been happening in America now for quite a long time, whereby clients have gone to roll out SD-WAN solutions themselves and then attempted to manage them. Having a GUI is great, but you've got a GUI to look after this SD-WAN solution. You can log in, you've got drop downs, you've got tick boxes, but at the end of the day, there's still a lot of complexity behind the decision-making process. So configuring the SD-WAN itself still needs some complexity and experienced engineers because they've got to design the logic that goes into it. Self-management generally is not an option unless clients have traditionally previously managed their legacy WANs. So I guess in summary, what we're trying to do is work with clients to focus on efficiencies as well as innovation. So yes, there's all this new software that can kind of create new opportunities and help you to innovate with your business as well as from a connectivity side of things. But what we try and help you do with SD-WAN is demonstrate clear and tangible ROIs. We come to you with an agnostic view from the network and security team and help you kind of demonstrate to the business what your return on investment's going to, which you couldn't traditionally do from an MPLS WAN solution. So with that, I'll hand over into Shoaib.
Thank you. Thanks, Chris. And thank you everyone for the call, for your time today and some really interesting questions. I'm actually looking forward to have one-on-ones whenever we get a chance to give specific answers to your questions. But as Chris mentioned, we have grouped them together. And I would be talking more about the connectivity, in other words, the networking component of the SD-WAN. So looking at all the questions, I would group them under connectivity, and the main concerns were more around the efficiencies in rolling out. If you have an SD-WAN deployed already, I assume, and then we are looking into sites rollout, would that give us some efficiency if we have SD-WAN in place? What would happen if I have a heavy workload or a heavy application? How would that be handled on my SD-WAN network? And the other two parts are regarding the reliability, resilience, and also the intelligent steering of my applications if I have multiple paths. So if I have to give a single problem statement for the connectivity or the network piece, as per the questions which we received, is that I want to reach from point A to point B in a shorter, faster, and a cost-effective way. Plus, I need to be able to take the routing decisions in form of business intent and then translate that using the orchestration layer onto my network technologies underlay. So with that said, I would actually be focusing on highlighting the SD-WAN component and different layers that make up the connectivity piece of it. But there were a few concerns which I was able, it was hinting out, and the questions were, to just quote out a few, is SD-WAN too soon for me, or is it, I have a network such and such, should I have gone with SD-WAN 2 years ago? So there was a unclarity which we could see with when is, whether we need SD-WAN, why do we need it, and when. So to capture that, we have try to create few diagrams in there, and there is no network conversation which we can have without having a diagram, right? So obviously that goes in the diagram. Very traditional WAN setup. It's representing your users and applications trying to talk to each other. Traditionally, they have always been in fixed locations. So users being in campus, branch, and HQ, and applications were always on-prem or hosted in DC-DR. So the only, the best connectivity which we had all these years were MPLS, very reliable, working all good. Till now, because the application started moving and living dynamically in different environments, so did the users. So with that change in the environments where the users are today and where the applications are moving, and also in a distributed world, SD-WAN would have some advantages here. But let's cover what the traditional WAN network, other forms of traditional WAN network looked like. You would have internet breakout from your DC-DR, so that's actually the only exit you have to the external world, which was enough because 80% or more was the traffic that was meant to stay or contained within the internal networks. If we are lucky and if we have enough users asking for a dedicated internet connections, into few of the sites would actually have one. But the purpose of those internet connections were internet for guest users or few users which were having a completely isolated connectivity outside. Then when we had more and more went into the internet side of the world, applications slowly moved into SaaS and public cloud environment. So applications and software started being offered as a service, and infrastructure or the spends which we usually had in DCs, DRs, and co-locations were more and more seen infrastructure as a service in like Azure or AWS. So the more and more applications went on that side. We had poor experiences and users trying to connect to those applications, but going through the same old traditional WAN network. No surprises if you have multiple hops going through a longer path would have poor experiences, and intentionally or unintentionally, all these users, what they wanted was to have a bypass route. Yeah, I call it a bypass route because it actually skips all your internal network and the internal hops you had, and just directly connect to the services which you are willing to connect to. And anyways, if you would have looked to the previous traffic flow, it was going through the MPLS network. It was not even going to the DCTR. It was all ending up on the internet side or onto the SaaS and public cloud. So is there a better way to actually connect to those environments directly and securely? The securely part I'm deliberately not using because I'll have Gihan talking about it. But from the connectivity perspective, yes, we want to have a direct connection. So if I have all my new environments in place, I have my users now living and staying in campus or actually moving between different locations, including small offices, home offices lately, and mobile users as well. On the other side, my applications were always in DC and DR, but now living in the world of internet, they are also in SaaS and public cloud. So ideally, from a connectivity perspective, what I would want is to have connections into DC. If the DC fails, connections into DR, connections into internet wherever possible, and also into SaaS applications and public cloud. For point A to point B, if I have a full mesh connectivity from all to all, that's what I want from my network layer, correct? And how does it work? There were again few concerns which we are trying to grab here is how does all of this happen? Is there a magical layer in between? Is there another third party where you have to procure links from? Or is there another third party who's going to manage all this for you? Is it actually happening close to the services, or is it actually close to the users where they live? We'll come back to the what component goes into the middle, but these are SD-WAN enabled devices which actually needs to go both close to the user and close to the services. That's how they are going to build this overlay and create this intelligent fabric, which is going to take your business intent and convert them into complex routing, protocols and configurations, and push that to the underlay. So you just interact and with a more GUI friendly environment if those overlays are created. And in the middle, you would have your old WAN carriers. Recommended is to have internet, because that gives you not only the build of the fabric, but also direct internet access wherever links have been there. Or you could have internet connectivity or LTE, just to give you a wired and wireless as a backup. We could also use MPLS, as Chris mentioned. MPLS is not there to replace. We can also use wherever it makes sense for the requirement. If there is a requirement, we would also use MPLS as part of this fabric. Now, to wrap up, there were a few use cases and advantages of over SD-WAN all over the internet. To anyone who knows even little about SD-WAN, they would always address the use cases and advantages. But my objective was to actually tie them up into these layers which we have discussed. It is very important that all of these layers brought together, they contribute towards fulfilling those use cases, and at the end giving you those advantages which are there. Now, we don't necessarily would actually go and go for all the use cases out there, but whichever is required, whichever is a problem statement for your environment, we address this on priority, and with all other use cases and benefits available for us to use in future. With that, I would actually hand over to Gihan, because when we have this traditional WAN to this new WAN setup, there is obviously security concerns, and how do we address this, and what components would we need? Gihan, over to you, mate.
Thanks, Shoaib. Yeah, that's good. Look, security is a broad topic, but we've tried to summarize the set of questions that we've received into a few different areas. So one of the key concerns that we've got is how to get visibility into the traffic, and how to make sure if you're trying to get into a certain compliance requirements, or if you want to, it could be SD Essential 8, or it could be another framework that you're trying to align to, how to make sure you have the visibility and full control of the overall network, plus the security around it. And then also there were another set of questions that were related to how to make sure your organization's data is protected from when people working from various different places. So it could be most of your workloads have been migrated to SaaS world. At this stage, most of them are either in the journey of moving to the cloud or transforming the applications into a software as a service model. So the set of controls that you would need now is actually complex, right? It's complex because now you need to make sure the applications, for SaaS applications, as an example, you need to make sure you will only allow the sanctioned applications to get through sanctioned SaaS instances. So people, for example, they won't be able to use their own personal OneDrive as an example. So they won't be able to go into a different company OneDrive, so they can steal data from your organization. So there are key concerns as well. And another part of this security conversation was more aligned to having the consistent security posture or controls applied across your organization, right? So no matter where the users locate, no matter where the branches are, you need to make sure your security posture or the controls that you're applying, defined by your frameworks, are applied in a consistent manner across everywhere, right? So that security enforcement kind of ties back into the advanced controls such as DNS protection. It could be the traditional URL-based, web access policies, or the traditional IPS IDS, for intrusion prevention, intrusion detection systems, and then tying it back to the antivirus and malware protection, and how to protect against the ransomware attacks, cloud attacks, how to make sure your vulnerabilities have been patched, and you can maintain that same level of posture across the organization. That's where the consistent security posture and the controls going to come into the picture. And one side of it again was to see how you can improve your defense layers, because the security is a journey, it's not a destination, right? So when it comes to security, you have various set of layers that you need to apply. From a network point of view, for the sake of this discussion, we are looking at where the security controls can be applied across, and where the gaps are as well from a network point of view, right? And also one aspect was, this is actually very interesting because it's a common topic within the industry as well. The cybersecurity skills gap. Every organization lose resources or try to hire recruits. It's a massive challenge across the organization, right? So across the broader market, I would say, just to hire more skilled people and how to maintain the security posture, how to make sure you can control your security posture with enough skilled resources. But one way to eliminate this is actually to operate, to more like automate your usual processes. How you can make efficiencies out of that. So when you look at the traditional way of security, you have multiple locations, as you can see in this diagram. So like you have branches, you have partners connecting into your networks, then you have mobile users, you have IoT equipment, plus you have data centers, public clouds, internet, SaaS applications. There's so many scattered different elements in here, right? So what you have done usually is using firewalls in the perimeter to make sure you have security controls applied in each location. Plus, you might have traditional MPLS networks or site-to-site VPNs to connect to each other, right? So all of these have been applied. The controls have been applied in various different points. So you can now see the complexity around this, because there are now so many point products that you would need to make sure you have security controls, that you can apply across each of these, different locations. So the complexity this creates is you have a lot of gaps within security. So you have unsecured locations here and there, plus inconsistent security controls applied across the organization. So the way this simplifies with the SD-WAN is, once you have the secure SD-WAN boxes deployed across, your security SD-WAN appliance, or the orchestrator will control the security posture. So once you create your security governance controls, it'll be applied across your organization, no matter where they are, right? And this will give you a good standpoint to see what's going on in the network, plus to get that control back in terms of security, and how you're going to prevent ransomware attacks, cloud attacks, plus the vulnerability management as well, because your patches will be updated across the board at the same time. And all of these controls have been applied. So this is a simpler way of doing it. And the SD-WAN fabric that you have allows you to inject additional extensions, to make sure you have enough visibility. For example, it could be SIEM solutions, to make sure you have the relevant controls in place to secure organization. So, but this is actually, we are rushing through these slides, apologies for that, but because we are fighting against the time as well. But, I'm going to hand it over to Holly. So the next session, pretty much, we're going to, we can dedicate some time with you. Holly's going to go through the slide.
Thank you. Oh my God, it's 11:24. We are actually under time. This is incredible. We didn't think we could do it, but I think we have. Just a quick thank you to everybody. So we will be reaching out to you directly after this episode. So just please look at your inbox. You may be the winner of a beautiful Logicalis jacket, which I'm sure the folk in Sydney could use right now. We'll also give you an opportunity to provide some feedback to us. So if this was a great session, please let us know. If there's things that you might tweak or change, please also let us know. And we'll be offering you guys a chance to meet with our team, as you can see here, to discuss your challenges further. So just stay tuned. Just want to say a big thank you again, and I'm going to finish right on 11:25. I think that's a massive effort by everybody. Thank you so much for attending, and stay tuned for the next invitation for our August SD-WANsday event. Thanks, everyone. See you later.
Thank you, everyone.
Thanks, everyone.